We had finished while loop and the for loop, and we are now in this point, which is the nested loop. So what is nested loop? We had also seen nested if statement, if you remember. So we were able to write an if statement within an if statement. This is also true for the loops. Like if I can write a for loop, and inside that I can write another for loop, and inside that I can write another for loop. So this will allows us to do actually to solve much more sophisticated cases. Like in many cases, like I might need to do a repeated action multiple times. Like in this example, for instance, we are trying to print those asterisks in a like a matrix style. We have rows and columns. And what we can do is in this code, we first go like in a for loop in which we use range 6, which means it generates numbers from 0 to 5. So we basically need to repeat it 6 times. And now what should we do 6 times? Well, within that iteration, we will repeat this action, which is we use another for loop. Now this time it goes to 8. So we repeat it to 8 times, in which we print only one asterisk in each iteration of it. And we set this end to empty space so that we will not move to the next line. And then, but check this indentation. So for this print function, so for the outer loop, I have one indentation. But for this inner loop, I put one more indentation so that I know that this print function belongs to this inner for loop, not the outer for loop. And then this print function, again, the indentation changed, which means that this print function does not belong to the inner for loop, but it belongs to the outer loop. And we just print this, which means that it will just move to the next line. So when we run this code, what will happen is basically we'll start our first iteration of the outer loop, which is here. So when it is 0, we'll print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times asterisk. And then, due to this line code, we will move to here, and one iteration of the outer loop is finished. Now we will start to this next iteration, in which now we will print again 8 times asterisk and move to here. And then our second iteration finished. So we will repeat this in total 6 times so that we will be able to have this kind of structure. And of course, why do we use nested loops? It's not just to print some asterisks and then in a matrix style or so. Well, it allows us to solve many much more complex problems. For instance, let's say that we have many students, and each student takes many quizzes, assignments, tests. So we want to find the total score for each student. So what should I do is basically my algorithm for each student, I will need to get her test scores, all of them, and then take the summation, all of them. And then I need to do this operation for all of the students. So I need to iterate over the students, and also for each student, I need to iterate over the tests that the student took. So this code here, it is actually doing this. When you see this kind of a code, actually, it might sound some kind of a scary, like because there's so many texts in it. Just pay attention, like how I'm actually approaching these kind of codes. Well, basically, first, there's so many tags, but a really good amount of them are actually just comments, which are actually just helping me to understand the code. So you can actually, read it to better understand the code. And then let's look at first this code. And we always start from the top. Okay, we ask the user with this input function, how many students do you have? And then we convert it to integer. We keep it in this num students variable. And then we also ask student by using this input function, how many test scores per student. And then we convert it to integer, and then we keep it here. So with these two scores, student and num test scores, we basically keep the number of students and number of test scores for each student. And then in this first loop, for each student in range num students. So range num students, what does it mean? Well, it will generate numbers from 0 to number of students that we have. Let's say if it is 10, then it will generate from 0 to 9. And then, well, basically we will iterate over all the students here. Then, now, whatever we will do at this huge block will be repeated for each student. So we will do them in a repetitive way. So we want to find their total test score. So that's why we set it to 0, initialize it to 0, this total variable. And then there are some print messages just to have some better output. Now, so student number 1 or some dash symbols just to separate the output, as you can see here. And now we start our another for loop, which is now for test num in range num test score. So now this range function will again generate me numbers from 0 to number of test scores. And then we will, which means that we will repeat these 2 lines of code. I understand it from this indentation that I have here. So these 2 lines belongs to this for loop. I need to repeat it for each test scores we have. And then, well, what are we doing? What is this repeated action? We ask the user, okay, the test numbers. We are asking basically the test score for that student, and we convert it to float, and then we keep it in the score. And then we update our total value by adding this total score here. So once we are done with this for loop, once we are done with the all test scores, then we will be here, in which we will calculate the average score by basically dividing total by the number of test scores that student have, and then we have some display messages. Once we reach here, we'll go back to the next student and repeat this action again until we finish all the students that we have. So again, in this problem, we need for loops, and actually in a nested way. One goes over the students, and the other one goes over the test scores for each student. Shall I proceed? And one more, again, comment. When you see these lines, this kind of a code that has so many lines of code, it might sometimes scary to start. Okay, what does it mean? There are so many things to start. Well, my suggestion is just start from the top and go line by line. You'll understand that actually it's not that scary once you just break the problem into smaller ones and then you just proceed. And there's a very also valid example for this nested loops. In a nested loop, actually it doesn't have to be only 2. Well, it can be actually much more than that. We can put loops inside the loop, and then another loop inside that in a loop, and so on. And the clock is actually very suitable for this operation. Like, let's say that we want to simulate an analog clock. So we have 12 hours in that. To pass 1 hour, we need 60 minutes. And then to pass 1 minute, we need 60 seconds. So for that one, what we can do is, actually I will write it as a code here. So we have hours in which we want to just simulate the hours. For that we need 12 numbers, and then for each hour we have minutes, but it is 60 minutes we have. And then each minute is actually, to finish a minute, we need 60 seconds. And then we will just simulate this operation. So I will just print it. Probably f-string will be suitable for that. So the hour information, then the minute, then the second. I said seconds. Let's make it minute. Okay, that would be better. So when I print this, now when we are doing this nested operations, you will see that it is actually the output that they can generate can be enormous. Why? Like, how many lines of code we will proceed here? Like, how many seconds do we have in 12-hour periods? This is the question. Like, so basically it will print 60 times 60 times 12. So we will actually have, if we just do the math here, it will print 43,200 lines. Now let's run it and see if it will be the case. So this is the output. Well, firstly, yeah, we are not, like, it's so long that my console is not able to show the first lines. But here is the output, as you can see. So here is our, this is the hour, 11, and then this is a minute, and then this is a second. So this part is important. This for loop is actually have been repeated so many times. It's been repeated 60 times 12, which is like 720 times we run this for loop. We run this for loop 12 times. So like this for loop has been repeated so many of times, and this print function will be repeated 43,200 times. So again, the code can be really enormous when we are doing this nested loop. By just writing 4 lines of code, we could create a really long output. Do you have any questions so far? Sorry. Let me check if I miss anything here. I think I didn't. All right. We have 2 remaining topics about the loops, 2 important ones. The first one is break function. So what is a break function? Well, sometimes we want to just exit from the loop without checking the condition of the while loop or the for loop. We just want to exit from the loop. It might be for many things. Maybe you got a very invalid score, or maybe you are just searching a number and you just found it. You don't need to check it. For those cases, I don't want to proceed. For those cases, what we will use is we can use this break function. So what is that? Let's look at this code. We have this while true loop. So which means that actually this is normally, if we don't have any break function, this is an infinite loop, because this is always true. This will not become false. So which means that we will keep running it. So, and what we are doing is basically we have this line function, line variable. We ask the user to input something, and then we check, okay, if this line, if the input from the user is done, we will run break. What it will mean is that if we run this break, we will not run this print line code, and we will not go back to the while condition, but we will just exit from the loop, and then we will come here, and then we will continue execution from here, which is basically we will print this message. So we will exit from the loop if this code is run. But if the line is not done, then this if statement will not be executed, this break will not be executed. So we will print this line message, and then we will check again, and we will ask user again the input, and then check if it is done, and so on. Until the user inputs done, then we will exit from the loop by using this break code. Let's do actually one example for this. One way of using this is, very common way is, let's say that we have some, I don't know, let's say that some students, a list of students, okay? Well, you can write any name for this. And so on and so, okay? And then let's say that our task is this student in the class or not? Okay, is that student in the class or not? So what I can do is normally, well, in a for loop, for each student in this students list, let's say that we are looking for Fatima. Is she in the class or not? Okay, we don't know. So what we can do is, if the student name is Fatima here, then I can say, okay, I found it. So I will just say print found her, okay? So she is in the class. Otherwise, we will keep continuing. Maybe we will just to check the code, check the execution of our code. I will put here one dummy code to see, okay, maybe, okay, let me write actually this. Print now current student is okay. What am I doing? I'm just okay. So when we do it, I'll just run the code now. So it is saying, okay, now current student is Aisha, Fatima, and then we found her, but then we still continuing it, execution. But actually it is not needed. If my task is Fatima in the class or not, okay, I just want to find a particular student, is she in the class or not? What I can do is, once I found it, I will just say break the code. So what will happen is now I will just rerun the code again, and then maybe we can say again, just as a finish, searching is done, whatever message you would like to give. Oh, there's an unindentation problem. What is that? Oh, there's one space there. Okay, yeah, that's all right. I get it. So what is happening is now is we look for the Aisha, then Fatima, and then we found her, and then we don't need to check, okay, what about the other students, because we already know that, okay, she's in the class. So that's why we break. So know that we are not checking the last student. So we say that found her, and then we break, which means we go here and we say the searching is done. So break can be used to basically exit from the loop when we think that we don't need the remaining iterations. Do you have any questions so far? Excuse me? What would happen if you didn't put the break? Yeah, that's a nice question. So, well, basically, if you just compare this output with this one, now it will checking this student also, but actually we don't need it, like, because I already found that, okay, she is in the class, so I don't need to check if the other students are also Fatima. No, that's why, I mean, for this execution, it will just save us time. But of course, it might be really important, like, okay, we have only 3 students. Let's say that you are working in a database system for Qatar, and then you have 3 million like numbers for the residents or so, okay? And then you are looking for, okay, is this QID belongs to the database? Is it a valid one or not? Okay, let's say. So you are searching for it, and then you found it. Like maybe in your first try you found it, but if you don't put break, then you will do those unnecessary around 3 million actions. You will just continue, but we don't need it, so we put the break so that it will save us a lot of time to do it. All right, shall I proceed? The other one is the continue function. Continue is to skip one iteration. So we will not exit from the loop, but we'll say, okay, this iteration will just immediately move to the next iteration. So in this code, for instance, again, now we have this while through. Normally it's an infinite loop, but we have this break code, so that's not a problem. And then we get, again, the input from the user. And then we check, well, we didn't see this notation, but basically it checks the first character of a string. We will see it once in the following chapters. So if our code, if the input from the user starts with this hashtag sign, we say continue. Continue means don't run this, don't run this, don't run this, but go to the while loop at the beginning, the start of the loop again. Start to go to the next iteration. So we skip the remaining codes, but we are not exiting the loop. So we check again, and then we got the output again. So here is this some sample output. So the user inputs hello there, and then it doesn't start with an hashtag. It's not equal to done. So we print the line. That's why we say hello there. Then we put hashtag don't print this. So we come to here. Yes, it is, the first character is hashtag. So we continue here, which means that we come here and then we ask it again the user. So that's why we ask the user again. And then now we say to print this, or we print that. The user prints done. So now we come here. That's why we break, and then we print done with this capital D. Because this is the message that we put after the while loop. So in short, we use break function to exit from the loop. We use continue to skip one iteration in a loop. Do you have any question? Like what? Two suggestions for those functions. We use this break function or continue function with always some conditional statement. Otherwise, because we don't want to run them all of them, otherwise it would be like if I just put here break, okay. So what will happen is, what I'm telling to the computer is that, okay, check the first student and then exit. So if it will be always executed, then I will not be able to proceed for the next iterations. So it should be always within an if statement to check, okay, if this is the case, then run it. Continue is also the same case. Like if this if this happens, run the continue. Like for instance, for this, let's say that we are going through the students taking this course, but we just want to focus on we'll do some calculation for a students coming from one department only. So going over the students, we check the department of student. Okay, hey, she's from computer science. Then skip that student. So we will not check it. So we put the continue. So which means that we will just filter out all the students from computer science by using this continue function. We will skip all of them by that. So again, this continue function can be used to filter some of our data. Do you have any question? If you do not, then I have questions for you, and this is our last slide for this chapter. So can you please answer this question? What is a loop? What is a for loop in Python? A loop that iterates a specific number of times, a loop that iterates until a condition is false, a loop that only executes once, and a loop that iterates over a sequence of items. The last one. Is there anyone who is saying A? Don't say A, please. This was my confusing part. In the last section, I also asked if some of them said A and some of them said D. But for the ones who say A, I understand it. This is why we use loop for that particular perspective, for that particular task. Like in our hours iteration, in this watch clock simulation, yeah, our goal is to run that iteration for a specific number of times. Like I want to run it 12 times, 60 times, and this is our goal. And and this is what for loop is saying. But the thing is, this is not how a for loop works in Python. So we do it to run a specific number of for a specific number of times. But how it runs, even for this case, is that Python first generates a sequence of numbers by using this range function. Like if we want to run it 12 times, we first generate a sequence from 0 to 11, and then we iterate over them. So that's why it is the last one for that operation, for this question. Okay, how about the next one? What statement is used to exit a for loop prematurely in Python? Break, the one that we've seen. And how about the last one? How do you create a sequence of even numbers from 2 to 10, 10 is included, using range function? This first one, which is, we start from 2, we go up to 11, okay? I'll talk about it later on. And then our incremental part is 2. So which means we'll go 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. Well, it's not the second one, because if you put 10 here, 10 will not be included. So we would be only print 2, 4, 6, and 8, but not 10. So if you want to include also 10, then that's why I should put some number here in larger than 10, which is 11 in this case. Or I could even put actually to be as 12, but anyway, how? It would be, it will give us the numbers that we want.